Depolama alanının %84 kadarı kullanılıyor. Depolama alanınız biterse dosya oluşturamaz, düzenleyemez ve yükleyemezsiniz. 3 ay boyunca 49 lira 99 kuruş yerine 11 lira 99 kuruş ödeyerek 100 GB depolama alanını ailenizle paylaşın. The first sign is not always a miracle. Sometimes it is the strange interruption in your ordinary day that will not leave your spirit alone. A name comes to mind while you are washing a cup and you do not know why. A person you stopped expecting to hear from suddenly sends a careful message. A door you assumed was locked starts moving from the other side. Before you have even touched the handle. You have been living with delay for so long that movement feels suspicious now. You pray, then question your own prayer. You feel a pull, then tell yourself not to get dramatic. But something is different this time. The pressure is not the same pressure that used to make you chase. This feels quieter, heavier, cleaner. It feels like heaven has shifted something without asking your emotions for permission. And that is what makes this season so serious. God does not always announce movement with noise. Sometimes he begins by disturbing the pattern you had finally accepted as permanent. You had learned how to function while feeling hidden. You had learned how to smile without explaining the weight. You had learned how to stop bringing up what disappointed you because people could only say the same shallow things. But now, the same God who kept you from forcing doors is beginning to send people toward you with timing you did not arrange. They may not arrive looking dramatic. They may not say, "God sent me." They may not even understand why they are reaching out, yet something in their presence, their words, their offer, their apology, or their consistencies will touch a place in your life that has been waiting for alignment. The warning is this: because it is happening faster than you expected, you cannot afford to be asleep in your spirit. You cannot afford to treat every sudden arrival as a coincidence, and you cannot afford to treat every sudden arrival as divine. This is a season where discernment matters more than excitement. The people God sends will not pull you away from obedience. They will help you recognize it. They will not feed your confusion. They will bring a kind of clarity that still leaves room for prayer. They will not require you to abandon wisdom just because the timing feels intense. What has already started behind the scenes may reach your life suddenly, but it was not sudden to God. He has been moving hearts while you were healing, redirecting steps while you were grieving, arranging conversations while you were learning to be silent. And when the first visible sign appears, you may realize that heaven was not late. You were only seeing the last part of a process that began in secret. For a long time, you may have thought the silence meant nothing was happening. You kept showing up, but the results looked thin. You prayed over the same situation until your words became shorter, not because your faith died, but because your heart was tired of performing strength. You watched other people get connected, recommended, noticed, invited, forgiven, supported, and remembered. Meanwhile, you felt like you were living in a hallway between what God promised and what life kept showing you. There is a particular kind of ache that comes when you know you are not lazy, not careless, not unwilling, yet the right doors still do not open. It can make you question your own hearing. It can make you wonder whether your obedience counted. It can even make you pull back from people, not because you hate them, but because every conversation starts to feel like another place where you have to explain why nothing has changed yet. But isolation before elevation is rarely empty isolation. It is not God abandoning you in a corner until he remembers your name. It is often the place where he removes the voices that would have shaped your next season incorrectly. He lets certain invitations dry up because they came with strings. He allows certain people to misunderstand you because their approval would have become a cage. He lets you sit with unanswered questions long enough for your motives to be exposed, softened, and purified. You were not just waiting for people to arrive, you were being taught how not to idolize them when they did. That matters, because when God sends helpers, connections, reconciling voices, or people assigned to unlock something around you, the temptation will be to clutch them too tightly. Delay can make a heart hungry in dangerous ways. It can make a small kindness feel like a covenant, a helpful conversation feel like destiny, and a quick opportunity feel like the only chance you will ever get. God has been healing that desperation in you. Not so. You would become cold, but so you would be able to receive without worshipping the vessel. The right people may come fast, but they are not your source. There are two ways people respond when divine movement begins after a long delay. One person panics and tries to control every detail because they are afraid the moment will vanish if they do not grab it. They over-message, over-explain, overthink, and start reading meaning into everything. They check whether someone viewed their story, replay the exact tone of a conversation, and call anxiety discernment because they have not learned the difference between urgency and fear. Another person still feels the weight of the moment, but they brings it back to God before acting. They notice the open door, but they do not kick it wider. They receive the message, but they do not build a whole future out of one sentence. They pay attention to peace, consistency, humility, to timing, and fruit. And this is the difference between spiritual alertness and emotional hunger. God can send someone quickly, but he will not ask you to become unstable in order to receive them. When something is from him, it may stretch you, surprise you, even humble you, but it will not require you to betray your conscience or live in constant fear that you are about to miss God. There is a calm authority that comes with true guidance, even when the circumstances are moving fast. You may have to answer a call, accept a meeting, apologize, forgive, listen, submit a form, or walk through a door before you feel completely ready. But underneath that step, there will be a steadiness that is different from panic. This is important because the enemy loves to imitate momentum. He cannot create God's timing, but he can create noise around it. He can send distractions when your heart becomes tender again. He can use an old pattern wearing a new face. He can tempt you to confuse intensity with assignment. So pay attention not only to who arrives, but to what awakens in you when they arrive. Are you drawn closer to prayer or deeper into obsession? Are you becoming more honest or more secretive? Are you more patient or more frantic? Are you able to surrender the outcome, or are you already trying to manipulate it? That question alone can expose more than a dozen signs. If this is speaking to a place in you that has been hard to name, let the like be a quiet marker of agreement, not hype, just a simple witness that you are paying attention to what God is doing in this season. Not everyone who appears suddenly is sent to help you move forward. Some people appear suddenly because your boundaries are finally becoming visible and they can feel access slipping away. Some appear because they miss the version of you who explained everything, absorbed everything, and apologized for having needs. Some appear because they sense that something is changing around you, even if they do not understand it spiritually. This is where discernment must be sober. A sudden message is not automatically divine. An apology is not automatically repentance. A compliment is not automatically confirmation. A familiar person returning is not automatically restoration. God is able to reconcile, yes, and he often does it in ways that humble everyone involved. But reconciliation that is holy will carry evidence beyond emotion. It will show itself in responsibility, patience, changed behavior, respect for boundaries, and a willingness to move slowly enough for trust to be rebuilt. If someone comes back only to reopen confusion, demand instant access, stir guilt, or make you feel responsible for their peace, you are allowed to pause. You are allowed to pray without replying immediately. You are allowed to test the fruit over time. Even Jesus did not entrust himself to every crowd that was impressed by him. There is wisdom in not confusing attention with assignment. At the same time, do not become so defensive that you reject the very people God is sending because they do not fit the image you built in disappointment. Sometimes the helper comes as a quiet coworker who notices your burden and connects you to someone with experience. Sometimes the important voice comes through an older person who says one sentence after church, in the grocery line, or during a short phone call, and that sentence lands like a key. Sometimes reconciliation begins awkwardly, with someone admitting only the first part of what they did wrong, because humility is new to them. Sometimes a divine connection does not feel electrifying. It feels safe, clean, and unforced. The enemy can use suddenness to tempt you into confusion, but fear can also make you reject God's answer because it arrives through human weakness. That is why you need both caution and openness. Do not chase. Do not shut down. Stand still enough to see what kind of fruit is actually forming. Behind many sudden shifts is a hidden chain of obedience you never saw. Someone felt a burden to pray for you and did not know why. Someone remembered your name in a room you were not invited into. Someone delayed a decision until the exact week you were ready. Someone who once overlooked you may begin to reconsider, not because you begged, but because God troubled their peace. This does not mean every person is being controlled like a puppet. It means God is sovereign enough to move through timing, conscience, memory, conviction, compassion, and circumstance. He can place your name in a conversation without you introducing yourself. He can make a person wake up thinking about an unfinished matter. He can let an opportunity sit untouched until the one prepared for it has finished learning what the opportunity will require. You may only see the email, the invitation, the call, the unexpected recommendation, the person saying, "I do not usually do this, but I thought of you." But heaven sees the whole network of small movements that had to come together. This is why you should not despise the ordinary form of divine help. A person sent by God may not arrive with dramatic language. They may arrive with a document you need, a warning you did not know to ask for, a connection to someone honest, a correction that saves you from embarrassment, or a calm question that forces you to tell the truth about what you actually want. Sometimes God sends a helper, not to make life easier, but to make your obedience more precise. They may challenge your excuses. They may notice a gift you have been hiding behind humility. They may refuse to flatter you, but they will strengthen what is real. That can feel uncomfortable if you have been trained to see support only as emotional comfort. Divine help is not always someone rubbing your back while you cry. Sometimes it is someone saying, "You need to finish what you started," and somehow you know they are not being harsh, they are being used. The acceleration may not look like everything becoming simple. It may look like decisions coming closer together, conversations becoming unavoidable, and your private preparation being pulled into public responsibility sooner than your emotions expected. And think about how this may unfold in a normal week, because God often hides sacred timing inside ordinary scenes. You wake up with a heaviness that feels different from sadness. So you sit at the edge of the bed and pray with no elegant words, only, "Lord, guide me today." Later, someone you barely know asks whether you ever considered doing the very thing you had stopped mentioning because it felt too delayed. You feel a quiet jolt, but you do not tell them your whole history. You just listen. That afternoon, a message arrives from a person who once mishandled you. They do not make excuses this time. They do not demand a response. They simply acknowledge something specific. You feel your chest tighten, and instead of rushing into an old role, you place the phone down and ask God for wisdom. The next day, a practical opportunity appears, but it comes with a deadline. You would normally freeze, imagining every possible way it could fail, but this time there is a strange peace in doing the next responsible thing. You gather what is needed, you ask a trusted person to look it over. You do not announce it to everyone because you have learned that premature exposure can invite pressure you were never told to carry. Then, and almost quietly, another piece connects. A recommendation, a conversation, a favor, a resource, a warning, a small yes. Nothing flashy, yet the pattern becomes too specific to ignore. This is what divine momentum can feel like. Not chaos, not fantasy, not a storm of signs that makes you lose sleep, more like a series of aligned moments that require obedience instead of performance. And still, you must test it. Peace does not mean ease. Confirmation does not mean you will never feel nervous. A God-ordained connection does not mean you should abandon wise counsel. When God sends people fast, He still expects you to walk clean. No manipulation, no pretending, no forcing your way into places he has not opened. No turning one encouraging sign into a doctrine. Let the timing breathe. Let character speak. Let repeated fruit matter more than emotional sparks. The right people will not require you to become less prayerful in order to keep them. They will not punish you for moving with wisdom. They will not make you feel as if discernment is disrespect. Part of why this season feels sudden is because your preparation was hidden even from you. You thought you were just surviving. You thought you were just learning how to forgive without receiving an apology, how to keep working when no one noticed, how to stop answering every provocation, how to sit with God when your feelings had no clean ending. But those private obediences were shaping your capacity. The day you chose not to send the angry paragraph, something was being trained in you. The month you kept showing up for responsibilities while your heart was breaking, endurance was being formed. The season you lost access to certain circles and refused to become bitter, your motives were being examined. The prayer you whispered in the car before walking into a place where you felt unseen was not wasted. God was teaching you how to carry weight without needing applause. That matters because the people being sent now may not only comfort you, they may also pull on what has matured inside you. Someone may need your wisdom. Someone may open a door that requires discipline. Someone may ask for your help in an area where you used to feel insecure. Someone may apologize, and you will have to decide whether forgiveness can be real without giving them the same access they once had. This is not a season for performing spiritual maturity. It is a season for living it in small, costly decisions. You cannot carry divine momentum with childish reactions. You cannot ask God to send the right people and then treat every person according to the wounds left by the wrong ones. Healing does not mean you forget what happened. It means the wound no longer gets to be your only counselor. There will be moments when your old self wants to sabotage the very thing you prayed for because unfamiliar peace feels unsafe. Pause there. Do not condemn yourself, but do not obey the fear either. Leave a comment with one honest answer. What has God been teaching you to handle differently before he brings the next connection into your life? That question may reveal more readiness than you think, because readiness is not proven by excitement. It is proven by the way you respond when your old pattern has an opportunity to return. A necessary warning belongs right in the middle of this message. A fast connection is not automatically a divine connection. Someone can feel familiar because they match your wound, not your calling. Someone can speak spiritual language and still leave you anxious, hidden, and diminished. Someone can say they were led by God and still pressure you to move faster than your peace allows. Do not confuse being deeply affected with being divinely assigned. The heart can react intensely to what is unresolved. Loneliness can make attention feel like confirmation. A season of delay can make any open door look like mercy, even when the door leads back into bondage. A counterexample may help. Imagine a person who enters your life suddenly, says all the right things, prays beautifully, and seems to understand your pain. At first, it feels like relief, but within days, you are checking your phone constantly, losing sleep, hiding details from wise people, making excuses for inconsistency, and feeling guilty whenever you slow down. That is not the peace of God. That is not holy urgency. That is a hook. God's guidance may challenge you, but it will not make you a prisoner to someone else's unpredictability. His timing may be quick, but it will not require emotional chaos as proof. If a person is sent by God, their presence will withstand patience. Their character will not collapse because you ask to pray. Their respect will not disappear because you keep boundaries. Their fruit will not depend on you ignoring red flags. This applies to relationships, ministry connections, business opportunities, friendships, reconciliation, and even mentorship. Spiritual warfare in this season may not look like obvious attack. It may look like a counterfeit arriving right before the real thing, hoping your hunger will outrun your discernment. It may look like an old door reopening with just enough warmth to make you forget why God delivered you from that pattern. It may look like a tempting shortcut that promises visibility but costs integrity. Stay alert. without becoming paranoid. Test the spirit, test the fruit, test the timing, test your own motive. God is not offended by wise testing. What he sends can survive the light. The practical posture for this season is simple, but it will cost you something. Slow down internally while obeying promptly externally. That means when something opens, you do not ignore it out of fear, but you also do not surrender your peace to it. Pray before replying. Ask God to purify your motive before accepting. Notice whether the opportunity requires honesty or performance. Watch whether the person respects your yes and your no. Keep your counsel small and wise. Not everyone needs access to what is forming before it has roots. Write down confirmations, not because you are trying to build a superstition, but because memory gets shaky when emotions rise. If the same burden keeps returning in prayer, pay attention. If a door keeps opening without manipulation, pay attention. If someone's actions consistently produce clarity, courage, humility, and obedience, pay attention. If you feel pulled into secrecy, pressure, confusion, or compromise, stop and bring it into the light. This is how spiritual maturity looks in real time. It is less dramatic than people imagine. It may be you deleting a message you were about to send because you realize it was written from fear. It may be you accepting help without apologizing 10 times for needing it. It may be you telling someone, "I appreciate this, but I need time to pray and think." It may be you showing up prepared for a meeting you did not expect to get. It may be you refusing to exaggerate your story just because someone important is listening. It may be you forgiving a person in your heart while still admitting they have not earned closeness. When God sends people fast, the pace around you may increase, but your spirit does not have to become frantic. Heaven's acceleration is not the same as human rushing. Acceleration means God can compress steps, connect dots, and move hearts in ways that would have taken you years to force. Rushing means you abandon discernment because you are afraid of missing out. The difference will show up in your body, your prayer life, your honesty, your sleep, your ability to hear correction, and your willingness to let God close what he did not open. Be ready but stay yielded, move but do not strive, answer but do not chase. Receive, but do not worship the gift. There is a quiet kind of evidence that God has already released movement. You are not the same person who once begged for the wrong door to open. That alone is a sign. You may still feel tender, still uncertain, still aware of the delay, but something in you has become less willing to betray your peace for access. The people God sends in this season will meet a version of you who has been refined by hidden fire. Not perfect, not untouchable, not superior, just clearer. Clear enough to recognize that being chosen is not a trophy. It is a responsibility to walk humbly when God starts answering. Clear enough to know that some arrivals are assignments, some are tests, some are closures, and some are mirrors showing what still needs healing. Clear enough to let God use people without making people into gods. So when the call comes, when the message appears, when the unexpected favor shows up, when the apology sounds different, when the conversation opens a door you could not have opened, do not waste the moment trying to prove you deserved it. Stand there with clean hands. Listen, pray, take the next faithful step. What comes suddenly may still need to be stewarded slowly. What feels surprising to you may be the result of years of unseen mercy, and what looks like a person walking into your life at the right time may actually be the visible edge of a much larger movement God began while you were still crying in silence, thinking nothing was moving at all.